Alright, so in this video what we're going to do is we are going to texture this low poly car. So I modeled this after a car that my dad was going to buy. It's called a Pontiac Solstice, back when they used to have Pontiacs. But just to get an idea, if I select it, I was trying to make it as low poly as possible, but you can see it's actually, it looks pretty good for low poly. But it is actually pretty low geometry wise. That way, depending on your computer and stuff, this should still run well, hopefully. And all of the objects and what have you are all atlased together. So if I select them all, you'll see that it does indeed fit in one UV space. You can see I try to use up as much as I can, but it's not organized in any particularly good way. Everything's kind of offshoot and stuff, but we're going to paint it in 3D, so it shouldn't really matter. Now, you can use your own model if you want, like if you have a vehicle or something you've made in another assignment or something. I don't have any issues with that. I'm just going to give you this car, but you don't have to do this car. But you should get a rough idea of how this works from here. So first thing I need to do is, you want all your UVs obviously to fit, such as what I had there. And then I just need to export this out to Substance. So I'm going to select all of it together and just go File, Export Selection. And I'm just going to go ahead and go right to my Scenes folder here. And I'm just going to say Maya to Sub Paint. And I'm going to turn groups off, groups on, point groups off, materials off, and the smoothing and normal is going to keep on because, well, I'll show you afterwards. But anyway, so I'm going to call it that. I'm going to export selection. Make sure you have OBJ as your type, export selection. Again, you should already have this anyways, but just make sure Windows, Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager, look for OBJ export dot, I think it's M, I thought it was bundle, but where are you? OBJ export.mll. But if you look at the model, you can see that it does have, like, I made these hard, but then the ones in between here are soft. So you see there's selective hardening and softening of edges and things. And if you don't remember how to do that, this is what you do. You select the edges you want to be hard. So I'll select this one, double click that. So let's say I just want that one and I want this one to be hard. This is already soft. I just go to Mesh Display, Harden Edge, and then you will see that now those are hard edges. Okay? And you can do the opposite, where I can select those and just do Mesh Display, Soften Edge, and boom, now they are soft edges. So I made some harder and other ones soft and so on and so forth. So I just want to make sure that that goes when we send the model over. Okay, so OBJ, we exported it out good. So now you need to use Substance Painter. If you don't have Substance Painter, you can download it. Look up, Substance 3D. I'm not sure what the name of it is. Substance3D.com. Okay. The only one we're going to be using, Substance is now actually owned by Adobe, which is kind of annoying, but it actually was Algorithmic or whatever. But the one we want is Painter, so just go to Products, Painter. Okay, Substance Painter. You can see you can do all this stuff in here. Just go to Buy, or you can do Try for free if you want. But if you go to Buy, you'll see down here they have an indie license, which is cool, Enterprise. But if you go down a little bit farther, if you are a student, you get a free license. So just click on that. They're going to ask you to like upload something just to prove that you're a student. I just went on and I just took a picture of the class and my name in it, and that's what I sent to them. They also have perpetual license on Steam. I actually bought a license of this like many moons ago, but it's much older than this version. Anyway, that's how you're going to get it. So you can either do this, or if you think you can do it quicker, it's probably a month trial, I'm sure. You can just do that, but why not get the free license? But if you have troubles with that, just do the trial and use that for this assignment. So once you get it installed, open up Substance. And I am not going to need this anymore. Sure, why not? I don't really care. Continue. Go back to Substance. So this might show up. I'm going to continue anyway. basically what they want you to do is you have to go through your registry and see all my stuff. I gotta clean this up. You can go to your registry and basically the computer is set up. It went over there. Why did it go? Okay, close. Oh, come on. Okay, you can go to your registry and oh man, it didn't do this earlier. This is weird. And there's directions for it. When that thing pops up, you can click on it. And basically what it does is that if it starts to hang, it'll crash. But if you follow what they tell you to do, it'll make it so that instead of crashing, it'll wait a little bit longer. But I had already done it, so I don't know what happened there. But I did install a newer version of it. So anyway, so you can open it up. It's going to have a start screen. Just close out of the start screen. That I had to close it out to bring it over from my other monitor. Anyway, so once you just close it out, and then we're just going to go ahead and do this. So you can just do File, New. And we're going to head and do the, actually, do they have, let's see. I was hoping that they would have, so you see they have a bunch of different versions for different stuff, but I don't see anything for Arnold in here. So we're just going to go ahead and do the generic PBR metallic roughness allegorm or whatever. Okay. Document resolution, I'm going to go ahead and do 4096. That'll be super high, but that way it'll look nice. It's going to ask for the file. So that's the actual model that we just exported out, the OBJ. So navigate to the export there. Where are you? Let me see. Actually, yes, that was a C, so it should be one more. Car Maya, scenes, and Maya to sub. Open. Okay. And the rest of this is good. Hit OK. Boom. There it is. Yay. Okay. So I'm going to make this more of an intro, and then we'll actually kind of do things in the next one. So it should be relatively quick. So up on the top here, you have your typical things with your files, your edits, basically file save and all that. Mode doesn't really matter. You'll see the window. There are other options here for like the display settings and stuff. The rest of it, if you accidentally hit a button, this I did need before, you might accidentally hit B or C or M, and you can see up here, if you hit a button and it suddenly does something really weird, it's probably you switch the view. Go back over on the viewport and you can just switch it here. So that's probably all you really need to know over there. Over here are the tools. We'll kind of cover these later on, but obviously brush draws, right? You can see. I didn't see the physical thing. Erase will erase. Project, I'm not really going to use much of that. This is actually pretty useful. The polygon fill. So with that one, what it'll do is that you can paint polygons, right? Which is kind of neat. But there's other options too where you can paint whole meshes. So you can see like these are, come on, separate chunks, right? And they also have it as UVs, which actually the UV one's the most useful. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. That's all we're really going to need there. But anyways, these are the tools that you would typically see. So for the most part, we're just going to have it on brush here. And you can see the settings for the brush here. But honestly, we're not going to use the settings there because you can get to them over here. And this is much more, we don't need this. This is much more robust than what you see up here. This is just like the real basic settings. Okay. Now, on the left here, you can see, we don't really need this texture set list. So there's layers and this texture set. Actually, I'm going to close this out because I'm not going to use that at all anyway. So there's layers. Basically, it's a lot like Photoshop, but it's a little bit different. It's kind of, I don't know if I want to say it's probably a little bit more complicated than Photoshop's layers, but it does run similarly, so you will be used to it because it's very, like Photoshop, it's very non-destructive kind of based. And then the texture setting, set settings, we will use this in just a moment. Okay, so that's what this is, and then these are the properties of whatever you have selected. So if we have the brush selected, it's going to show me the brush. Later on, when we have layers and stuff and we select them up here, it's going to give me the settings for the layers down here. But basically, it gives you the settings of what you have selected. Now, down here, you have the shelf. All right, and the shelf has all these things in here. So there's all. That one's worthless because it's going to be everything in there. There's project. Now, project basically is when I can save this here. And in fact, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to Control S. And I'm just going to go ahead and save this right into the car and the scenes. And I'm just going to call this like car substance project, we'll call it. Okay. But what I can do is if I have to save any textures or any kind of thing I might want to use again, like a stamp or something, it will save it specifically to this project. So every time I open up this file, it'll populate in here, and it'll keep it for me. So it's that specific. Alphas are alphas like you would see in Photoshop. Basically, I can click on this, and then I can draw that shape. Okay. So it's kind of what you would expect it to be. You can also drag it across, which isn't very useful, but that's the idea behind it. It's these alphas. You know, we'll use a little bit of these, but this is one of those things obviously you probably would want to like load up. Grunges. Not going to really use those too much. Procedurals. Man, this thing is really slowing up. I wonder if that's the thing it's talking about it with it not wanting to load up. But it's not even showing me all the textures. But the textures are textures like you'd expect. Filters, not going to really need these either, but basically they're very similar to filters that you would see in Photoshop, where it'll add it'll allow you to almost do like an adjustment layer kind of thing, right? Where you throw these on there and it will affect the image or whatever you have attached to it. So let me see. There are some that it does it automatically. Not like color match, but like clamp, or like you could blur or bevel, things that you would see inside of Photoshop. Some of these you probably might even recognize. Brushes are kind of like the main thing you're going to be using. These are basically your brushes, right? So you draw and they have these settings, and when I select the brush, I can see the settings over here. Same thing when I did the alphas. You can see when I click on the alpha, I need to grab one. You'll see that you can do the size and the changes and all that. Particles, they have these cool particle brushes, which you can try to play around with if you want, but basically they use particles in order to draw on the surface. So let's say I draw something like this. You're going to see it's going to draw these particles. Man, that is a flurry of snow. All right, let's make this a little bit smaller. It didn't really. Let's try leaks here. Okay, there you go. So it'll draw these particles, and then they'll kind of like they'll have dynamics basically applied to them. But some of them are neater. Like there's this fracture one. So you see it draws these lines, right? Which is kind of neat. So they have all different ones. You can try playing around them if you want. Tools, kind of like the brushes. Materials. So these are materials like you would expect, but they have quite a bit of stuff applied to them. So if I drag a material, let me see. Let's throw you on here. We'll just do it this way. All right, there we go. So now everything's got carbon fiber applied to it, but you can see when I have that carbon fiber, see the settings change now. So one of the things I probably would want to do is take the scale up quite a bit. So because you could see it was way too big. The striations were too small, but I think it goes up to like 128. So I could go up and then make this carbon fiber, but it's a cool material, but you can see it has these kind of like built-in attributes. I'm just going to delete that. Okay. And that's kind of neat. So there's materials. There's also smart materials. So these materials will generally lay over top of the model, right? But they're the same thing as like you would see inside of Maya, where we have procedural textures, where basically it's just a repeating pattern that it just lays over top. These smart materials will actually use the surface and the maps that we're going to bake in order to apply certain effects. If I do it now, it's not going to work, so I'm not going to bother showing you, but I'll show you in a little bit. But these are really cool, and they're a really good way to start. And then the environments, you can choose different environments. So by default, I don't know what environment it's currently on. If I go to, let me see, where are you? View, and then we go views. I need to go to display settings here. you can see we can go ahead and we can turn on, let me see, I think it's on the bottom. Where are you? Here's show wireframe mesh in the display settings. That might be helpful to you if you want to show that. But there is, where show camera frame, activate color profile. Where is the button to show the environment? Environment settings, shadows. I don't want that. Oh, right here, environment opacity. So I thought it was an on-off switch. So I go like that, and you can see you can turn it on. Right now it's got a bit of blur on it. So if I pull this back, you can see that's the environment's on there. If I hold Shift and right click, I can rotate the environment, which changes the lighting. So that's what's lighting it. But I can drag different ones in. So let's say I want to use this one instead. I just click and drag it up into there. And then now that's what's lighting my scene. So I'm just holding Shift and clicking, and that's moving the lighting. I don't suggest really using any of these because these are, if you know you're going to be in a scene that's just like this and what have you, then it makes sense. But most of the time what I would suggest is doing something where like a studio one, or like here's studio automotive. So I'm going to do that one because what that's going to do, oh, there it goes. What that's going to do is just going to give me a generic white lighting. Now, just like I said before, you want to put your model, your texturing and stuff in the ugliest situation possible so that when it's in a good situation, it will look much better. And now we have that in there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the environment opacity down because I don't really like it. But you can make some changes as far as what you're seeing here, like add depth of field and things like that. I don't find that particularly useful, but this wireframe might be. So this show mesh wireframe, you can also choose the color there. You might want to put that. Okay, so that's what that is. I think that's all we really need to work on. So before I end this video, I want to do one other thing with this, and that is this, and that's actually the smart materials I was talking about earlier. So let's say I go ahead and I very slowly scroll down. So you see this steel painted, scraped, dirty. Let me see. Is this one worse? I want to find one that's like dirty. I guess this one's good. Okay. See how it's got those chipped metal pieces? I'm going to take this. I'm going to drag it up here so that it's in my stack. Okay. And you're going to see it's going to apply. But notice that it's sort of, that does not look like that. Okay. Not that great. Not good. So what you need to do is that this works by knowing certain things about the model. Right now, all it has is the model to work with. What you have to do is actually bake these texture maps. So I'm going to delete this guy out. You could also leave it in, it doesn't really matter. But if you go to the texture settings, and then we scroll down to where it says bake mesh maps, you want to click on that. Okay? You can just leave them all checked on, even though really we're not going to be able to use a lot of these anyway. But yeah, so you're going to select all those and just go ahead and tell it to bake default material mesh maps. And it's going to go through and you're going to see it make all the mesh maps, which is kind of cool. And then we'll hit OK. And so now it's made all these different maps. I'm going to go back to my layers. Now watch what happens if I drop this in there now. You could see it doesn't do that good of a job. Let's try a different one. I don't really like that one. Let's try, oh, you know what? Actually, come on. This thing is running slow. Oops. Alright, let's do, I'm going to go down to, let's say, the dirt one here. And let's change the scale. It's running slow. Alright, well, anyway, I'm just going to leave it at that. So, but you can see now it's actually using the model itself. See how it put the wood chips, or the chipping and stuff in there? I'm going to grab a different one. Let's try this one instead. And let's delete you. There we go. Steel painted. Let's see if that's better. I didn't want that grimy dirtiness. I was just hoping to get the metal shavings. That one kind of sucks too. Let's try this one. These are all kind of poopy. Anyway, we're going to play with some of the settings and stuff. So, and it will make it a little bit better. But now you can see it's at least trying to utilize the what's in the model itself to actually texture it. But we are going to need to adjust some stuff. You can see the scaling and stuff is incorrect. But this will be kind of a base that we will start from and we will work from. Okay, so I'm going to make kind of a grungy, like, I'm going to call this like a sports car, like for like a apocalypse, Mad Max style, game kind of thing. Okay, so in the next video we'll kind of continue on and we'll explore more of these smart materials and basically how to lay out and get the general texturing going, but should have kind of an overview of it in general.